to the renamed Jewish Strippers podcast. And we are live. And it's renamed. The podcast has been renamed The Jewish Stripper. Jewish. The Jewish Strippers podcast. Still raw, still real. My name's Ala Kaplan. If you've seen any of my previous podcasts, then you have seen my past introduction that I'm a former stripper, and that influenced a lot of my life. Now, I'm going to go straight into the episode. What I want to talk about today, it's just me, no guests. And if anyone wants to chat is open, and you can inbox me or you can message me. And I want to talk about the black sheep of the family. I'm one of those people. I'm one of the black sheep of the family. I am the cycle breaker. I am the empath in my family. I am the empath. I am the cycle breaker of my family. This is about breaking generational trauma from in order to heal from not only your own past, but the things that your family influenced upon you. And we're not saying it was bad, not saying that things were bad, just saying that there are things that have a ripple effect. Every family has it. Everyone gets into a situation where very often you are the lone person that ends up carrying all those things that were influences on your parents and your grandparents and the way that you were raised and the things that influenced you to make the choices that you made. I'm, for instance, if the title doesn't give it away, the Jewish stripper, I was definitely the black sheep of the family, not only because I became a stripper. My family didn't even know that I was dancing for at least 2.5 years before I told them. And not only was I dancing at that time, I had, I guess, a preference for black men, and I ended up marrying one. And I hate to say that Jews are racist in any way, and we are talking about something that happened over almost 30 years ago, over 30 years ago, 30 years ago, close to 30 years ago. So I was the one that married out of my religion, and not only my religion, but my race. And that didn't sit well with the family. It didn't sit well with the family at all. And we were estranged. I was estranged from my family because of that for several years. My family wouldn't even come over to my house. I don't think it was so much at the time. I don't think it was as much maybe from my family not wanting to be around me because I was in a relationship with a Black person, as much as the fact that my grandmother was sick with cancer at the time, and I didn't come around. I didn't come around the family because I was with a Black person, and because my family did choose to make me feel like the black sheep of the family. Literally, word the black being the operative word here. So, but it had a lot, the race thing had a lot to do with these notions that, and it's funny to me, it's always been funny to me that Jews somehow, were in any way higher or better than non-Jews, and not only non-Jews, but a completely another race. And um, we were considered the race of people that was for a long time and still are in this point with everything that's going on in the world, which you would quote unquote call quote unquote undesirable. We were Jews were not wanted in many European countries. So it's interesting to me that you know the Jewish family was not accepting of the culture that I married into, the culture that was actually, they even helped Jews helped fight for civil rights. Back, a lot of people don't know this or don't want to know this or choose to ignore it. Jews marched with Martin Luther King. Jews marched in the South with the the trying to help Black people to attain equal rights in America. It's a very forgotten chapter of our history, and so it always kind of puzzled me when I would say that I was dating someone Black or I was living with someone Black and then I married someone Black, that even though my predecessors uh, faced the struggle for equal rights together, because at the time Jews weren't even tolerated that much in America. People didn't want Jews living down the street from them, buying houses in their neighborhoods, um, taking jobs that were in the same place as them. And so, going back to this black sheep of the family generational trauma, it was even interesting to me because my mom, for instance, when she married my dad, who was Jewish, um, I mean, basically, she married my dad because she was pregnant with me. It wasn't, it was, I guess you could call it a shotgun wedding because my mom got pregnant at 18 years old, had me at 19, and was my father was considered an undesirable choice for her. So history repeated itself when I married my ex-husband, when even before I married my ex-husband, when I was dating someone black, it was a problem. And it's interesting to me that she she didn't want me dating. I don't know if maybe she didn't want me dating someone black because maybe she thought it would make my life more difficult. And I didn't have children. I didn't have a shotgun wedding. I didn't have that. It wasn't out of necessity that I was with someone who the family considered an undesirable uh, mate. So it's all kind of a blurry mixture of whether or not my family, I think, I took a DNA test. It said that we had on my mom's side 2% Kenyan, which is very funny because probably a lot of people don't want to admit that they have probably ancestry from the African side somewhere in their family, and a lot of families do not want to admit whether you're, white, black, Hispanic, Latino, even people I know that are Latino that don't want to talk about the side of the family that has the African roots. And of course, people like Puerto Ricans and anyone from islands that were colonized by the British first, and then what you want to call the Americans, were they had African blood, whether it was obvious or not. So going back to this generational trauma, where I'm going with this whole thing is that we bring these karma is everything. Karma really does exist. And karma is a funny thing because, again, it's a ripple effect. Whether you believe in karma from your own religion or whether you just believe that everything comes full circle, everything comes full circle. Karma is very, very real. And what you do, that the 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 part of the book of the in the Bible about, that you do unto others as you would have done to you is very real, because if you go steal from someone, someone will steal from you. If you do some harm to someone, in a malicious way on purpose for your own enjoyment or laughter, um, your it things tend to come back threefold, tenfold, even morefold. And when you do the karma in your own family, when you in your own family, when there's a divide in your family, and it's very difficult to deal with, and it's very difficult for people can go into, can be one best friends one day, and then, the next they can just have an argument, and that argument just doesn't go away. Those things, words said in the heat of the moment, and friendships are so fragile, even between relatives. One word and or one mean word, and an exchange between people can change everything in a heartbeat. And so it's really difficult to come back from that. It's difficult to gain trust again. It's very difficult, excuse me, when someone says or doesn't say they don't apologize. They don't apologize at all. Excuse me. When just sniffles. So when people are in a heated argument, it's you really have to think about what you're saying all the time. Because words can hurt. They're just words, but you really have to be careful about what you say, how you say it, and try to remember, does the good outweigh the bad? And is it worth it? Is it worth being right? And I've had this happen to me personally, because I'm writing a book, and I guess I was digging kind of through the family secrets, and I was writing about my family in specifically, and I was writing about how the trauma that affected my mother as a teenager, and how that shaped her reality as a person. I was writing about her relationships in her family and things that were said that were hurtful. And so it caused a gap. It caused more than a gap. It caused a fracture in a relationship for her with my aunt, her older sister. And I'm not going to go into details, but there was a big argument, and I think that my aunt is very angry that I wrote about this situation and repeated what what I repeated, basically what was told to me. I didn't I was I was raw and real. That's just me. Um and I repeated things that were told to me that I guess I guess maybe it hurt her feelings a lot that I repeated these things, or that I put her in a light that was uncomfortable. I put her in a light that didn't didn't make her look so good in a negative way, and it caused a rift. That's the word I'm looking for, really, not a gap, because a gap is kind of a time frame where nothing happens. So I think I caused. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel bad because I told the truth, and I told the truth about what things that had transpired. Oh, I didn't really sugarcoat anything. And that may be a flaw of mine, but in general, I wrote about the reality of a situation and how it made my mother feel. And so this caused a rift in the family. And the only part I feel bad about is that my aunt doesn't know how to say I'm sorry. Or doesn't know, to say I didn't realize that something affected you so deeply. Um there are people where you have an argument, and one person has to be the bigger person because the other person will never say they're sorry, and you have to take that into account. There's sometimes you have to be the bigger person, but at the same time, when someone never apologizes and then picks up tries to pick up where things left off, as if nothing ever happened, as if there was no argument, there was no conversation, there is no I'm sorry to say. It's just like, tra la la, it's another day. Oh, it's just another day. Those things can hurt, and I know that it can cause depression, it can cause anxiety, it can cause just a lot of hurt when you don't say you're sorry, when you don't say that you feel bad for someone feeling being when you really just ignore completely the situation, and that is dismissive. It's very dismissive to the other person, and I think that hurts more than the argument itself. In fact, it hurts more than the original situation, where what you did to in in the beginning, what you said in the beginning to someone's feelings that you hurt, that you said something really awful, something just so horrible to a young person, to someone when they were young. And you basically dismissed their feelings about how it made them feel at that time, even if it was 40 or 50 years ago. um 40, 50, 60 years ago. You're When you are ignoring the whole situation, you're almost repeating the same pattern that you started to begin with. You just went backwards, and instead of really saying, even even if you say not I'm sorry, but I'm sorry that you feel bad about that, or I'm there's just there's no coming back from breaking someone's trust all over again a second time. And if you feel that you were portrayed in a negative light, um, perhaps, and I feel like this, even if the person is old, like in their 80s, for instance, I don't feel that personally, this is my point of view personally. I don't feel that someone is owed respect because of their age. I feel that in my opinion, respect has to be earned. I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're 100 years old and you were, let's just say, honestly, an asshole 50 years ago, 60 years ago, you're 100, whatever your age is now. That's, I'm not going to dismiss your bad behavior, and I'm not going to allow you to dismiss my bad feelings that you have thrust upon me just because you're you're now old. And I think that a lot of people feel, oh well, as I'm getting older, I don't really have to hold my tongue. I don't have to, I can say whatever I want. Hell, I'm 85 years old and I'm just gonna say I'm too old to care. I don't believe that. And especially when it comes to family members, I don't believe that you're entitled to um, to skate by. I don't believe that you're entitled to skate through life, and you're not going to get a pass. You're not going to get, at least not from me. So, the reason that I wanted to talk about this so much is because I see how deeply it can affect people, and the only thing that I can say, if you're on the other side, if you're trying to break the cycle of this trauma, of this generational gap, this 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 generational trauma that comes from, you know, um, people who were immigrants, who lived through a war, who didn't talk about things. They they didn't want to talk about things because they lived through so much pain, but at the same time, it showed up in other ways. If you lived through something that was traumatic, um, that you doesn't give you the right to put that trauma on on someone else. And everything, you reap what you sow. It's such a cliche, but in the end, it's true. If you're going to be an asshole, then if you're, by a certain age, you're alone, then maybe it's because you did some shit that caused you to be alone. or maybe you just prefer to be alone. And I guess I'm the black sheep of the family because I'm writing about this and I'm talking about this, and I want the family trauma. I feel like the family trauma needs to be healed somehow. And I feel like I'm the person in the family that has to end that cycle. So I welcome your comments. I know it was a kind of serious episode, but hopefully, and I invite anyone who wants to be a guest, who wants to talk about anything. And of course, you're invited if you would like to advertise your business on this podcast. And I miss my friend that was doing the podcast with me, but she's going to go and do her own thing. And I wish her much success in all her future endeavors. I think she'll probably be great. She'll be a great podcaster, and that's Teresa. So Teresa's not here anymore as a co-creator, but I wish her all the best on her own journey. And all I can say, life is short. Forgive easily. Um, you know, forgive easily, but don't give people a pass if they're toxic and does they traumatize you twice. As people say, as the cliche goes, people show you who they are, believe them. So I'm going to end on that and wish you all a good night and a safe night. Things are crazy in Israel, and I wish my family there safety and love, even the ones who are crazy, even the ones who caused the generational trauma. I still love them and wish them the best. And I'll end with that.